Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. An update on the city's 10-year housing and homelessness plan as it reaches the halfway point. We share with you the progress, but also where there needs to be improvement. And the city's only consumption and treatment site has closed its doors. With little understanding if or even when it will reopen, we hear what those consequences could be tonight. And our geographic location puts us in an interesting position to chat about hot dogs. We take a look at one of Windsor's favorites, which according to an expert is in our history. This year, the city of Windsor will be halfway through its decade-long housing and homelessness master plan. The first 5 years have been quite tumultuous with a global pandemic, skyrocketing housing costs, and record inflation rates. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa has more.
No, maybe I'll say a B.
That's the grade the city is giving itself midway through its 10-year housing and homelessness master plan.
I think we could do better, and I think that's what I'm looking forward to in the next 5 years.
2024 marks the halfway point of the plan. And when it first came out about 5 years ago, there were a few goals the city wanted to meet by this year. One of them, to cut the number of people experiencing chronic homelessness in half. By this year, the city wanted to get 342 people out of homelessness. Since 2019, 228 have been supported, so far falling short of that target.
I hope in the next 5 years that we're going to see more improvements and get closer to those targets.
Recent years have thrown unexpected curveballs, a global pandemic, hot housing market, and record inflation.
At the end of the day, that leaves a lot of people who are just on the brink of experiencing homelessness, and then way more who unfortunately are falling over the edge and having to access emergency supports.
Shelter leaders say the system has been overwhelmed by issues that weren't anticipated in 2019. And yet, those in the field say that there still have been wins, like starting up the Housing and Homelessness Help Hub, a drop-in center connecting people to community supports and medical care. The city also created stronger partnerships with community resources. Over the next 5 years, building affordable and supportive housing is a focus, and the Women's Shelter wants to see more prevention efforts.
Let's put a lot of our work and focus into trying to prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place is probably going to be our most cost-effective solution. So really focusing heavily, I think, in the next 5 years on diversion efforts, on doing what we can to stop the flow of people into the shelter system.
Another goal of the master plan, wanting to house more people and have them stay housed. 969 people were housed through the Windsor-Essex Housing Connections team. About 62% have kept their tenancy for a year. Woodall anticipates the city will review the master plan sometime this year. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Safe Point, the only supervised consumption and treatment site in Windsor, is no longer operational, closing its doors yesterday due to a lack of funding. The provincial government halted the application process for consumption sites after a woman was shot outside of a site in Toronto. Last night, a vigil was held outside of Safe Point on Wyandotte Street East with community members expressing their sadness about its closure. Advocates say the injection site reduced the risk of overdose death as Windsor-Essex continues to see more fatalities due to drug use. Today, we spoke with an organization that offers outreach services to people with HIV and AIDS.
Our agency is disappointed that it is paused for the foreseeable future. I continue to be proud of the community-based response that will continue while this temporary pause takes place with the consumption and treatment service. I'm disappointed that municipal leadership and provincial leadership continue to move forward with the rhetoric that they have been putting out into the community about people who use substances. I wish they would, focus more on policy around an overdose response, policy as it pertains to a drug policy that isn't working for our region, and to continue to build capacity for people who use substances and services. Let's just get this funded. Let's get people connected to care. Let's reduce overdoses in our community, and let's get people connected to the treatment and recovery that they require. I am not hopeful that that will happen quickly because political rhetoric seems to be outweighing actual policy development in our community. And it is my hope that, there's some serious reflection by our political leaders on this issue, that they can make these changes.
Ontario Provincial Police say they charged 4 more people in the West Region with impaired and distracted driving in 2023 than 2022. At the same time, fewer people have died as a result of crashes caused by those factors. Police charged 63 people with distracted driving in Essex County alone between January 1st and December 12th, compared to the 21 people charged in 2022. Officers also charged 322 people in Essex County with impaired driving during the same 2023 period. That's 51% increase from the previous year. The OPP say enforcement is a factor with the higher numbers.
Well, ride events for the region year over year are up 70% within West Region, and Essex is up about 50%. So they have increased the amount of ride checks they're doing. Essex as well is the largest OPP detachment in the province, not just in West. It's 50% larger than most detachments, approximately. So there are a lot more officers, a larger population. They're doing more enforcement. They're going to get more impaired charges, and they're doing a lot of ride checks as well.
Windsor police say they have arrested a man in connection with a carjacking last week. It happened on Boxing Day around 1 a.m. in an alley off Moy Avenue near Erie Street. Police say someone approached a man as he was trying to get into his car. The culprit allegedly threatened the victim with a firearm and a knife before stealing the vehicle. No injuries were reported during the incident. A 35-year-old man has been arrested and charged with robbery with a weapon, pointing a firearm, and other offenses. Now, as most of us celebrated the new year starting, 2 local families were busy celebrating the birth of their babies. The first baby of the year in Windsor, Essex is Derek Eduardo. He arrived at 4:52 a.m. yesterday at Leamington's Erie Shores Healthcare. The baby's parents, Zoila and Jose, say it's a wonderful blessing for them to start the year. And at Windsor Regional Hospital, staff welcome Benjamin Sky Rollins. He wasn't born until about 10 a.m., a little later than the hospital says they typically see their first birth of the year. The new parents, Jacqueline and Kyle, say they were enjoying a movie at home on New Year's Eve before heading to the hospital. Congratulations to both families on your New Year babies. Well, it's a messy concoction of chili-like sauce, bright yellow mustard, and finely diced onions. The popular food is best eaten with many napkins, and if you're anything like me, it'll still end up down your shirt. That might not sound appealing to some, but a Coney dog and fixture of Detroit cuisine is a hot commodity around here in Windsor. We spoke to an author about the dog's history in our region.
In Flint, and probably Detroit too, it was the auto workers. When Buick opened in 1907 in Flint, they needed something handy to eat. In downtown Flint, they were working 24/7, and all the trains were passing through Flint. And this place opened up right downtown, and it became a haven for the auto workers, both in Detroit and in Flint and in Jackson. And that's really, they fed the auto workers.
During COVID, couldn't get a Coney dog, couldn't cross the border, so I figured there was a hole in the market here in Windsor, and we deserve a Coney Island here. The Coney sauce is like no beans, can't do beans. That's where a lot of people go wrong. Hot dogs got to have that case, the natural casing on it, so it snaps when you bite it. The bun's got to be soft. You don't want to be like chewing on a dry bun. And the onions, you don't want onion flavor, but you want a little something on the sauce, like something to crunch, bite into. And the mustard just mixes with the chili, gives it a nice tangy flavor, and you got a Coney dog.
2024 will bring the Doug Ford government midway of its term. The premier will be hoping to turn the page on the controversies that dogged him for much of last year. CBC senior reporter at Queen's Park, Mike Crawley, looks at what to expect in Ontario politics this year.
A parking lot in Niagara Falls, the site of Doug Ford's biggest political climb down since becoming premier.
I made a promise to you that I wouldn't touch the Greenbelt. I broke that promise. And for that, I am very, very sorry.
Despite that apology, the Greenbelt affair could still haunt Ford politically in the new year, because the RCMP is investigating whether anyone should face criminal charges.
The Greenbelt in particular has been the most damaging piece for him because it plays into something that we know is a weakness in how people perceive him. There is a certain segment of voters that is growing that thinks that Ford makes decisions not in the best interest of regular people, but for himself and for his close buddies.
2 years into the government's 10-year plan for 1.5 million homes, the pace of housing construction in Ontario is nowhere near on track to hit that target.
There are reasons for that aren't in the government's control. There's a labor shortage, interest rates make it more difficult to finance construction. All those things are true. But they have to show progress on housing, especially now that the federal government is finally showing progress on housing.
The new year brings a new leader to the Ontario Liberal Party in the form of Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie.
This is going to completely change the dynamics of Ontario politics in 2024, because up until this point, the Liberals have not had a leader, a permanent leader that can go up against Doug Ford.
Bonnie Crombie? Oh, the new Ontario Liberal leader.
The PCs are already trying to define Crombie in the minds of voters with attack ads like this.
She even increased taxes as mayor in this economy?
You don't spend that much money on opposition messaging unless you do see somebody as a threat.
Marit Stiles is still new-ish as leader of the NDP.
Wow, thank you.
Her big political challenge in 2024 will be competing with both Ford and Crombie.
I think you're going to see Marit Stiles and the NDP really spending the next year trying to position themselves as the party of healthcare.
For the government, one key task will be finding solutions to the healthcare staffing crunch. Also on its agenda, whether to boost funding to universities and colleges and allow tuition hikes, both recommended by an expert panel. And how to address people's affordability concerns in the next budget, which must be tabled by the end of March. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Rampant inflation was a big story last year, and it's likely to keep making headlines this year. It's a serious economic problem that hurts most people, but there are some who get some significant benefits, like top executives. According to an annual report from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, Canada's 100 top paid CEOs have already earned what the average worker makes all year. CBC's Philippe de Montigny explains.
Canada's top CEOs made more than ever before in 2022, a year of sky-high inflation.
CEOs are paid primarily through bonuses, and those bonuses are based on things like revenue and profits. And they are being remunerated as if every dollar of these inflation-driven profits are their doing.
A new report from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives found that the 100 highest paid CEOs raked in nearly $15 million on average that year, about 246 times what the average worker made.
It's absolutely enraging.
Canada's largest private sector union says this growing pay gap and the rising cost of living has been pushing workers to demand higher wages.
You have seen workers rising up against that. This is why we're having more disputes in Canada. It is why there is more conflict at collective bargaining tables, because workers have said enough is enough.
The higher the risk, the higher the compensation.
Asni Zawali is the CEO of Connected Labs, a tech startup in Toronto that designs virtual campuses for universities and large organizations. He says top executives shoulder a lot of risk.
Their role is to ensure the financial and operational viability of the company. If they do that, they get compensated accordingly. If they don't do that, they get fired.
But his company has a policy to limit the wage gap.
The highest salary is never 10 times higher than the lowest salary. There's no cap on the highest salary, as long as you move the lowest salary up as well.
To address the pay gap, the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives suggests introducing a wealth tax and adding new income brackets at the top that would be taxed more heavily. Philippe de Montigny, CBC News, Toronto.
There are new regulations in place at daycares in Ontario that will try and prevent rare but horrendous deaths of young children. Daycares will now have to have a policy outlining steps they'll take when a child doesn't arrive or isn't picked up as expected.
The intention, as I understand it, behind these policies is, in essence, to ensure that if children do not arrive at the childcare setting that they are expected to go to, there is a clear direction for how early years educators are expected to approach parents and guardians to check in for the safety and well-being of the child.
The new regulation came into effect yesterday. The change is intended to prevent the deaths of young children inadvertently left in hot cars. Similar safe arrival systems have long been in place in schools, but not in childcare settings. The sun finally making an appearance today after what felt like days of gray weather. We have your full weather forecast coming up after the break. Plug your ears if you're a die-hard hockey fan, because it was a stunning upset and a heartbreaking loss for Canada today at the World Junior Hockey Championship in Sweden. Canada fought back from an early deficit in their quarterfinal game against the Czechs, but in a tie game with just seconds left in the third period, here's what happened.
Fremont works in, drops it back to Beher. And now Stensel shot scored! Stensel with a shot that deflected by Rousseau. And with 11 seconds to go in the third, the Czechs have retaken the lead.
Czech Republic hung on for a 3-2 win. It's the first time they've ever beaten Canada in the medal round at the World Junior Tournament. Canada is now eliminated and has no chance to win a medal. Nick Cernkovich is here now with our weather forecast. Nick, the gray overcast weather we saw through the holidays had me feeling not my best self. Please tell me we have a little sun in the forecast to brighten up the post-holiday blues.
Yeah, we do have a little bit, Meg. I mean, we're still looking at some cloud cover tonight, but you know what? In the long-range forecast, we've got a couple days of sunshine, or at least a mix of sun and cloud. Temperatures, it's an interesting story here. We've had some mild weather over the last week or so. Starting to get a little bit of a reality check right now as temperatures get closer to the seasonal mark. As they dip a little bit, though, over the coming days, we're also going to see the sunshine return as well. -1 degree right now in Windsor. That comes with a little bit of wind there. Winds around 20 to 30 kilometers per hour. That means that wind chills, making it feel like about -8 in Windsor, similar elsewhere across southwestern Ontario. So a little cooler, and like I said, a little bit of a reality check here compared to what we were seeing earlier on. Often you'll find in the wintertime that mild weather is accompanied by that kind of gray, cloudy weather as well. It's just sort of how it works. Typically, colder temperatures also give us clear skies. Now, here's what we're looking at the moment. We've got cloud cover in place across the region. Same story basically everywhere across southern Ontario as the system slowly sweeps across. It is going to drag down some cooler weather. We've got some flurries in place just coming off of Lake Huron. This continues through Wednesday night into Thursday morning as well. By Thursday, it clears out. I think Wednesday night into Thursday, we get one shot of sort of flurries, mostly coming off of Lake Huron. So I think areas in the lee of Lake Huron, like Goderich, for example, could pick up a little bit in the way of accumulating snow. I don't think we're going to see much, though, down in Windsor other than a few flurries. Thursday is when you can look forward to seeing some of that sunshine. Now, in terms of how much snow you can expect, again, the areas in white, it's about trace to a centimeter of snow in some places. I think trace at best down in Windsor, although when you wake up in the morning, potentially tomorrow morning, but certainly on Thursday morning, could see a light dusting, but that's really about it. Most of the accumulation, if anything, coming off of the lake, the lee of Lake Huron. Overnight tonight, we've got temperatures that are going to hover around the 0 mark. It's the wind chills, though, that are making it feel a little cooler. So around -1 for tonight, depends kind of where you are, but -1, -2. By tomorrow, 2 degrees. Cloud cover still in place. Few flurries across the region, especially tomorrow night into Thursday. It clears out Thursday. We get a bit of a dip in the temperature, though, so -1. Not that bad, but a little closer to seasonal. Overnight lows also -5, -6, -7, and hold steady. But I think you've got a couple of days of sunshine there, or at least a mix of sun and cloud for Thursday and Friday. Meg.
I will have to get out around there. Definitely feeling much cooler today, too, than it has in the past.
Yeah, like I said, a bit of a reality check, I think.
It absolutely is. Thanks so much for that, Nick.
You bet.
Well, stay tuned. We have more news coming up. have received some shiny new gifts this holiday season, but you wouldn't be alone if you're worried about how long they'll last you. So many goods are built to last for just a short period of time, and many of them end up in landfills. Now there is a growing movement in Canada to make it easier for people to repair things on their own. Aaron Collins has more.
It's called a repair exchange. Busted stuff from snowblowers to baking gear.
I bought my KitchenAid mixer, stand mixer, to get fixed.
What was wrong with it?
It wouldn't turn on.
That's no good.
No, it would. I tried to fix it myself, and I didn't.
Paired with expert hands, fixing them up for free.
Too much goes into a landfill. I mean, the landfill over here is full, and it's filling up pretty fast. You know, the more we can keep out of there, the better, right? That's what I think.
More people are looking to repair instead of replace things these days, a trend that's been noticed in Ottawa, too. This bill passed in October allows people to skirt barriers to repairs put in place by manufacturers. The federal government has hinted that more help could be on the way for Canadians looking to fix things.
I think that the winds are blowing in the repair direction. If we look at Europe, if we look at the United States, clearly this is the way we are headed.
A push for people's right to repair their stuff.
Is a public interest movement that's calling for greater access to parts, tools, information, and software that's necessary to fix all the things that surround us today.
Well, it's a movement being embraced at repair shops across Canada, too.
If you can fix it and it works and I'm saving the environment another phone, that makes me really happy.
The biggest barrier to making repairs more common, the price of parts.
What makes this problematic to fix?
Even though it's an incredibly easy repair done within 10 minutes, the raw cost of this screen simply makes it not economical.
But some skepticism here that new laws will change things.
We've been burned in the past. The legislation ends up not having the teeth it requires in order to actually make a change.
Still, back at that repair exchange, a win.
Just hoping and praying that it would work out, and it did. I'm so happy.
Some hope, too, for a more sustainable future. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
The end of the holidays mark an especially happy time for some four-legged residents of one Connecticut farm. They get to dine out on something many households are throwing away this time of year. Take a look at these adorable alpacas turning discarded Christmas trees into a tasty treat. The farm owners say the needles are a healthy snack and beneficial for the animal's digestive system. It's proved so popular with the furry crowd and the public, it's become an annual tradition. Community members are encouraged to make it a day of family fun to round out the holiday season and bring over their tinsel-free trees and even hand feed the hungry critters if you wish. Those alpacas must have some stomachs of steel. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.